Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about something I don't talk a whole lot about here on the channel typically, and that is revolvers. Today I've brought out a couple of Webley revolvers like this one. This is a Mark VI 455 caliber revolver. The Mark VI was manufactured between 1915 and I think 1925 or something like that. And that's the other thing I want to bring up, guys. I don't sit and research these guns for hours and hours on end so I can get up and recite stuff to you on camera. This is stuff I'm talking about from off the top of my head. Many times I'll say something that might be incorrect, and I try to correct that later in the comments down below or whatever. Or if some of you Webley collectors out there want to correct something I've said, make those comments down below. I read them and it helps me learn from you guys. I'm not a teacher, guys. I'm a shooting enthusiast, and this is just fun for me. And I have a pretty darn large collection, and if I knew everything about every gun I had in my collection, I'd have to be a frickin' genius. All right, so, and I'm not. So anyway, the old Webley, and again, this Mark VI, that's what I want to talk about today. And its little brother. This is a Mark IV 38, which is a 38 Smith & Wesson. But I also wanted to tell you guys that the reason you don't see a whole lot of revolvers on the channel is because they just really don't hold much interest for me if they weren't a military service pistol. The Webley obviously was. This gun served the British Empire through the late 1800s, through the the 1900s, First World War, Second World War, and was retired soon thereafter. Although these, the little 38s, continued on in service with police and stuff like that, clear up until the 1960s, maybe even the 1970s, and you may find some smaller countries out there that still issue these or use these with their police forces and stuff like that. So they're a very interesting, well-built little handguns. But yeah, the modern revolver just doesn't hold much attraction for me because really, honestly, in my opinion, and I don't want to upset any of you revolver guys out there that may have a little J-frame stuffed in your front pocket, the automatic, once it came of age, really rendered the revolver obsolete in my opinion. And my interests lie primarily in military service weapons. So pretty early in the 19th century, the 20th century, around the turn of the century, 1900s, automatics really came of age. The 1911, for example, really does render guns like this obsolete. By the time you get into the 70s, 80s, and 90s, revolvers really have no place in a modern military or even in a modern police force. I'm sorry, guys. They are obsolete in my opinion, and most people that use guns for a living would agree. So anyway, that's why you don't see me with a 686 or a GP100 or a Model 29 or something like that in my collection. It's just because it's not interesting to me. But this bad boy is, and so we're going to do a little bit of shooting with the Webleys this afternoon and talk a little bit about these really cool, iconic military service pistols. Let's go ahead and load the Webley up here with some 455 ammunition. Now here is the 455 load. It's a rimmed case, a little bit shorter than a 45 ACP, and this is a 262 grain Fiocchi load. There are companies out there that still manufacture this obsolete cartridge, mostly because most likely these guns are still fairly common in the world. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of these guns they probably produced. And you'll probably find gun collectors the world over still wanting to shoot them, so you will find companies like Fiocchi and maybe PPU and other companies like that that will manufacture ammunition for the gun. Now, the 455 is not as powerful as a 45 ACP, but you can shoot 45 ACPs in them if the gun has been cut to accept moon clips. Now, the bore diameters are very close, 451 on the 45 ACP and 455 on this one. But they still work together. Now, you cannot shoot plus P or plus P plus ammunition in these guns as it exceeds the proof loads that Webley used in these. Now, here's the downside. A lot of these guns were cut for use with 45 ACP, and some of them, like in my case, they took a little bit too much material off, and the firing pin can't quite reach the primer on some of the cartridges. So you'll have a lot of misfires when shooting the original 455 ammunition. So I'm going to go ahead and load the gun up. The gun is a top break revolver, so you'll notice how it's laying over. Now, there were other top break revolvers, the Schofield, for example, but this is a double action, and it's designed to use smokeless powder. But the top break works like this. Now, the gun is loaded, so I'll handle it carefully, but you have a little lever right here, and you push this lever down, and when that happens, notice what the rear sight's doing. See how it's moving back and releasing the top half of the gun, and it hinges right here. So now you can open it up. Now look what else it's doing. See how it's raising those cases out? So this top brake, when you go to reload it, you hit the lever, snap it open, and it will flip those spent cases out, readying the gun for you to reload it. So it's a very fast revolver to use. You know, I would say it's definitely faster than the old single actions. You had to load one at a time through a gate and empty one at a time through the same gate. And some would argue that the top brakes are even faster than the modern swing-out cylinder revolvers. Either way, it's a neat feature. The sights are fixed, and the sight is part of that rear latch. Now, you'll also notice, I'm gonna keep my hands back, that it's both double action, so I can just pull the trigger and it will advance the cylinder and then release the hammer and fire it, double action, but it's also a single action. I can cock it, look at that big old firing pin, and pull the trigger and it will fire. I'm gonna go ahead and put this down very carefully. You'll also notice that the Webleys, all of them, have a lot of play in the revolver on this cylinder, I should say. And that's perfectly normal. When you pull the trigger, it'll tighten up. As the hand pushes the cylinder over against the stop pin, it'll take that slop out at the moment of firing. So don't worry about the cylinders moving around. Now again, sadly, some of the guns like this one had a little bit too much material taken off, and they won't reliably fire the 455s anymore, so it'll be click, click, bang, click, click. Yeah, but for me, that's not that big of a deal, because you can also, because they were modified, you can now use 45 ACP, which is affordable, widely available, and you can do it with these full moon clips. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire what rounds will go off out of this gun of the 455 stuff, and then we'll throw in the moon clipped 45 ACP and show you how that works. See, I went all the way around that time before it fired a round. So that's really not all that safe. Now I'll try to fire some of these with a chronograph here if I can get the gun to go off. So out of the 6, I really effectively only got 2 to go off. So now you'll just snap the revolver open, and some of those cases stick a little bit, but snap it open and it'll flick those cases out. Now, what will work in this modified revolver is the 45 ACPs on moon clips. Okay, see how that just drops right in there? Close the revolver up, and now you have a modern cartridge out of your old Webley that is reliably going to ignite. All right, and again, open it up and see how it lifts those out for you. All right, so there you have it. Despite the fact the 455 Webley has a bore diameter of 455 and the 45 ACP has a bore diameter of 451, the 45 ACPs are surprisingly accurate, even though they're a bit undersized for the bore. So I'm gonna go ahead and load the Webley up here really quick with some more 45 ACPs. This is Winchester White Box, 230 grain ball. Just simply set it in there, close her up. And downrange, I have my rubber dummy about 7 yards away. And this rubber dummy's got well over 1,000 rounds through it, and it's still holding up just fine. So I freshly painted it, and you should be able to see the hits on the rubber. But I'm just going to shoot center of mass with the old Webley here. Start off with some double action. Pretty effective. You can see I was hitting him right about here. I was holding right about here. So it's just a little bit high, but windage is perfect. Now I fired all 6 rounds, open it up, kicks out those 45 ACPs with the moon clip. Okay, drop more 45 ACPs in. You just kind of wiggle them around a little bit because they're loose rounds. They're kind of a little bit squirrely. This one's really fighting me. Let's try a different one. Usually they don't cause me any problems. There we go. That one dropped right in there. And we'll do some single action shooting this time. Shoot him in the face. Yeah, that's a pretty darn tight group right there going on in the, what would be his right eye socket. Shot his eye out. All right, again, to reload. That time it didn't kick him out. But yeah, it's a fun gun to shoot. I wish this one would reliably use the 455s. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't really care because the stuff is horribly expensive. And now I have plenty of it sitting around. That I can fire maybe 1 or 2 rounds every 6 rounds loaded to a cylinder. But as you can see, the 45 ACP is perfectly safe in the old Webley. And reliable. Another nice little group down there. Fired rapid fire single action. Reload. And let's give that last moon clip that was giving me a little bit of fits earlier a try. There it goes. It dropped right in that time. So you just kind of have to wiggle them around because you have 6 loose rounds kind of dangling from that moon clip. You can see how they move around a little bit. So you just kind of have to wiggle them in. Now it won't go back in. Wiggle them into place. The moon clips make it even faster to reload the revolver if you wanted to carry something like this for self-defense, but I don't think many people would. But if you had no other choice. Not too bad for the old girl. Reload. Ah, didn't quite kick her out. Let's take a look at that little 38 Webley now. This guy was designed around 1925 or 1927. I believe I'm remembering that correctly. And it was intended to replace the 455 in military service after the First World War. So Webley was approached by the British government and they said, hey, we want a 38 caliber revolver to replace the 455. Now, as the story goes, they didn't specify what 38 caliber they wanted. Webley, on their own, came up with using the 38 Smith & Wesson, which is a PUD cartridge. It's not nearly as powerful as a 38 Special, for example. So here's a PPU load that I'll be using today. It's a 145 grain bullet, and this is what the 38 Smith & Wesson looks like. You can see it's considerably shorter than a 38 Smith or 38 Special. And grab another one because I have butterfingers. It's also quite a bit shorter than a 357 Magnum. And it's a lead bullet. So that's what Webley ran with. Now, the British government liked the design. They said, yep, we want it. But then they took Webley's design, went to Enfield, and developed the number 2 pistol, which is a near perfect copy of the Webley 38-200. This little Mark IV here. So that's what the British government wound up pushing into service, was the Enfield revolver, which was a near perfect copy of the Webley. And Webley wasn't happy about it, so much so they took the government to court. Well, while all that was playing out, the Second World War started. And the British government went back to Webley hat in hand and said, hey, we would like for you to produce the Mark IV 38s for us. And they pushed both revolvers into service. The manual of arms was the same for the soldiers using them. And even then, with both Webley and Enfield producing the guns, they couldn't meet the war demand, and the 455s continued on in military service until the end of the war. After the war, 455 was retired, and these continued on. Loading it is just like its bigger brother. It's just basically a scaled down 455. Have your loading lever here, push that down. When it's pushed down, that allows the cylinder to swing downward. The ejector comes up. Now look how thick that ejector is and how deep the recesses are in the cylinder. Now if you look at that and compare it to my 455, you can see how they machined the surface down of the cylinder. See how thin that little star is, and see how thin that pocket is for the rims. You can see how they took material down to make the gun compatible with the thicker moon clips. But the grip is pretty much identical. This is a war production gun. It actually says war finish right here on the receiver. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of cool. And they're beautifully made guns. Now, just like its big brother, it loads the same way. I'm gonna go ahead and take out some 38 Smith & Wessons here. Let's see if I can do this without dropping a bunch of bullets on the ground. I can be a bit clumsy at times. Stick the box back in my pocket, and just like the bigger brother, you drop these little stubby 38s right into the cylinder, and you're off to the races. Now again, because this one hasn't been milled or otherwise altered, you can't use moon clips to speed this process up. You have to load rounds individually. Now simply close the cylinder, and you'll also notice there's that play I was mentioning in this gun as well. So let's go ahead and fire it here really quick. And there's not much recoil to this little 38. It's a fairly accurate little gun. Now, just like with its bigger brother, push the lever down, rear sight comes rearward. It actually pushes against the hammer, and now you can break it open, and it kicks the empties out. Now that I have the gun empty, we'll double check. Now that I have the gun empty, let me show you that cylinder play. All right, now I'm going to cock the revolver, and it still has that cylinder play, but as soon as I pull the trigger, it tightens up. It becomes harder to turn it. All right, same thing with double action. When you hold that trigger to the rear, it's got much less play in it when it's being fired. So it's normal for that to be a little bit sloppy. If you have one of these, you find one at a gun show and you're playing with it, you go, ugh, I don't want this one because it's defective. That's not the case. That's how they're designed, and they still work just fine. I have the lab radar set up here. This is a Doppler radar system, which is a chronograph. And we do sell these at Copper Custom. They're really cool. They don't require any sunscreens. You don't have to have direct sunlight. You don't have to have anything like that. You can actually use this thing in pitch black, and it works just fine. You can actually even use it in the rain. So we got it all set up. We're going to shoot the 455 first, see if we can get a couple of these rounds to go off, and see if we can get a velocity reading out of these bullets. "638 feet per second. Not impressive. $699. 2 tries, 2 rounds went off. $698, and the Webley's 3 for 3. $712, 4 for 4. We're doing pretty good. $605, and that one had a slightly different pitch to it, so I think it was a little bit of a squib. Flinch and dud. Didn't go off that time. So we actually got 5 rounds to go off, which is really fortunate. So I'm going to go ahead and empty this thing out, and we'll give the 38 a try. Okay, guys, we got some of those were the 262 grain, I believe, 455s, and these are the 145 grain 38 Smith & Wessons. My lab radar just shut off. Let's turn it back on. My battery may go dead here, guys, because I haven't charged it. There we go. And see if we can record here and get some readings before this battery completely dies on us. "676 feet per second. So we're seeing about the same velocity with a bullet that's quite a bit smaller than the 455. I think I got 2 of the same reading than a 645. That was a 680. And 612. So we got a few readings there that may have been duplicates or that may not have picked it up. This operates with sound pressure, and you have to have it just in the right location next to the muzzle. I may have been just a little bit too far back. But anyway, we got some good velocity data, and no doubt this 38 Smith & Wesson is kind of an anemic cartridge. All right, guys, I had broken everything down and forgot to fire the 45 ACP out of the Webley to give you guys an idea of what the velocity difference may be between it and, say, a 1911 due to the bullet being a bit undersized. So I set everything back up, and I'm loading some Winchester White Box 230 grain ball into the Webley using the moon clips. We'll get the lab radar all set up, and here we go. .748, 755, 766, 768, 758, and 765. All right. Let's go ahead now and use 4 rounds, because I'm running out of 45 ACP, of the same Winchester White Box out of a standard 5-inch barreled military 1911. And here we go. .823, 823 again, 833, and 829. So, you know, 50, 60 feet per second difference. So the bullets are moving a little bit slower than out of the Webley than they are out of an automatic. Again, probably due to the fact that gas is escaping between the cylinder and the barrel, and also because the bullet's a bit undersized. So, and 45 ACP typically on a real military load with a 230 grain ball round will be up more around 900, 950 feet per second. So these are a little bit underpowered from Winchester, which is just range ammunition. But there you guys go. Now we know. So let's say you want to shoot a Webley, but you don't really have the money to buy one or to feed one. Well, there's some pretty cool options out there. Or if you're a Webley collector like I am, and you want to shoot one, and you live in a subdivision, and you can't really shoot a real firearm, but you have a safe BB trap in your basement or outside, well, Airgun Depot has these cool little guys. This is a 455 Webley BB gun. This thing is really, really cool, guys. My kids get a kick out of shooting it. It uses these cartridges, which you press a BB into the tip, and they just pass through, so the air passes right through them. And you load the gun just like you would a standard Webley. Hit the lever, see the rear sight coming back. It hinges open, even has the extractor. It's all metal. It has the heft of a Webley. And you load it just like a real pistol. Drop your 6 rounds in, and it uses a CO2 cartridge in the pistol grip. I'll show you that here in a second. Close it up. The CO2 is right there in the pistol grip. And now you can shoot. Has double action too. That was single action. How about that, man? No recoil, very hearing safe. It's like having a suppressed Webley. The extractor works, so your rounds all come out, and you reload them and do some more shooting. Again, these things are 189 bucks, and you can find them at Airgun Depot. Well, guys, it's time to tie things up. I hope you enjoyed coming out to the range with me and shooting my Webley revolvers. These are really cool pieces of history. They're still commonly available in places like Gun Broker, and if you want to shop around, or Guns America, any of the online auction type sites or listing sites. And, you know, it's a cool piece of military history. Which one do I recommend you get? If you want to shoot 45 ACP and keep it as close to the original, probably get one of the 455 models. Although I really enjoy shooting this 38 quite a bit more. It's more pleasurable to shoot, a lot less recoil, and it's just a gun that I can even give to my kids or my wife to shoot. It's just a very pleasant gun to shoot, which is why the British military wanted a 38 caliber revolver in the first place. If you guys have any questions about anything you've seen in this video, of course, ask those questions down below. Of course, if you have any tidbits of useful knowledge from history about these firearms, please post them down below. I try to read all the comments, and I will stick around for the first couple of days after the video goes live to read and respond to those comments. If you haven't already, please check out Copper Custom. That's our online store. If you want to support the Military Arms channel, it's the best possible way. And also, I invite you to check out full30.com. It's full30.com, We've taken all the web's best firearms content creators and brought them under one roof, and that is Full30.com. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys soon.